Today, our guest is Lieutenant General Russel Honoré. I'm pretty sure everybody knows who he is, but I'll give you some brief points about him. He was the commander of the Joint Task Force Katrina and Global Preparedness Authority. He led the Department of Defense's response to Hurricanes Katrina and Rita in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. Prior to his command of Joint Task Force Katrina, General Honoré served in a variety of command and staff positions which focused on defense support to civil authorities and homeland defense. He supported the Department of Defense planning and response for Hurricanes Floyd in 1999, Lily and Isidore in 2002, Isabel in 2003, and Charlie, Francis, Ivan, and Jean in 2004. It's a long list of hurricanes. He also planned and supported the U.S. military response to flooding in Venezuela in 1999 and Mozambique in 2000. He led the Defense Department's planning and preparation for Y2K. He planned and oversaw the military response to the Space Shuttle Columbia tragedy and the D.C. sniper shootings. The full list of General Honoré's military achievements and awards is very extensive. Just trust me on that. It's very long. He retired in February 2008 after 37 years of active service with the Army. He continues to speak and consult nationally on building a culture of preparedness, and he's a CNN contributor. General Honoré has been chairman of the Louisiana Bicentennial Commission and a board member with the Louisiana Disaster Recovery Foundation. He is the author of Survival: How a Culture of Preparedness Can Save You and Your Family from Disasters, and the new book, Leadership in the New Normal. We are very happy to have him here to talk about environmental issues in the state. And before I welcome him, just a reminder that only working members of the media and press club members are allowed to ask questions. So please keep that in mind. And now, General Honoré.
To the members of the press club, I thank you for this opportunity to come before you today and present on behalf of the people in Louisiana who praise and take with blessing this great place where we live, that we can live and prosper with clean air, clean water, safe food, and safe land. I want to commend two of our great citizens in Louisiana that I got to meet last year, Senator Adley and Senator Dove, for receiving the Blue Heron Environmental Award over the weekend down in New Orleans. I think we might be starting to rub off on them a little bit there, John Barry. Well, we got two of our leading politicians that we're going to have to deal with this year being recognized for environmental work. When people ask me how do we get into the Green Army and what am I doing here as a retired general officer engaged in talking about pollution, I first must qualify that because we advocate for fighting pollution because you can see a whole lot of companies and consultants running around this town that call themselves environmentalists. And in many cases, companies and people in business of industrial cleanup, and that's a very broad term. We like to limit the terms that I use it in the space that I volunteer in that we're about fighting pollution, to get companies. We live in a very special place, and it's kind of like the best of times and the worst of times. The best of times, we have a thriving economy that's being driven by the energy industry, and we're in a very unique space now because while the price of that energy is going down, it may be bad for our state in many ways and for jobs in certain circles. On the other hand, that concentration of plants and activities it brings into our state call for our state of Louisiana to even have a more vigilant system to be able to monitor and make sure that those companies that's coming to Louisiana and operating do it in accordance with the Clean Air and the Clean Water Act. Now, the vigilance of the Clean Air and the Clean Water Act. In some circles, those two words in Louisiana are dirty words. But remember when President Nixon and Johnson, collectively the two of them, when they approved the Clean Air and Clean Water Act, ladies and gentlemen, we had cities in America where the rivers would catch on fire. Right here in Louisiana, we saw the evolution of Devil's Swamp. We saw the evolution of a Superfund site up at Camp Minden that's still there today that has not been resolved. And my own introduction into this work started a little over a year and a half ago when the people of Baton called and they said, General, we would like for you to come help us. Come help us work our way through this government agencies at the state and federal level to get some resolution on what was going on in Bayou Corn. And from that beginning, we put together this group of organizations that we're working with around the state that's committed to clean air, clean water, and safe food. Jenna, would you go to that slide on Bayou Corn, please? This is what it looked like at the beginning. It started off the size of a tennis court. It's now right at the estimated size of 39 acres. And the reason we got involved with this, or I got involved with this, because they asked for help. We would meet at the Pierpont Library. And when I went there, I met organizations such as Lean and Dr. Wilma Subra and others who were working with the Sierra Club that were working with the people in Bayou Corn. And we tried to give them a voice. And in this place right here at a different location, you gave us a voice, an opportunity to talk about Bayou Corn. And from that, ladies and gentlemen, we took a walk from Bayou Corn knowing the only way that we were going to create some change and the only people that's going to save us in Louisiana is us, the people of the state and the people that's being affected by this pollution. And today, ladies and gentlemen, you could just about write Bayou Corn off the map. It would be one thing if that was the only community we lost in that part of Louisiana. But only a few years before we lost Bayou Corn, we lost a place called Grand Bayou. It was just a few miles up, a mile and a half up the road from Bayou Corn. My question to the people of Louisiana as we were getting ourselves committed to the legislative engagement last year, how many times do we have to lose in Louisiana? And when can this happen in your community? Look, I'm not an enemy of energy cooperation. Now, some of their lobbyists write words like rogue environmentalists. I guess that's me. And out of control environmentalists. And extremists. I spent 37 years, 3 months and 3 days in the Army. I used to keep my finger on nuclear weapons in the Pentagon and in South Korea. Now I'm a rogue environmentalist. Because all I preach from is what the Clean Water and Clean Air Act says and the Constitution of the state of Louisiana, that our government, the purpose of our government is to protect the people. And in all decisions that are made in this state, the number one thing is to look out for the will of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, we didn't see that at Bayou Corn. We saw ambiguity. We saw a state that wasn't ready to control a disaster. We saw a state that our natural resources have good bureaucrats in it, but they don't have the law and they don't have the staff to supervise the complexity of the industry we have amassed in this state. We are not Arkansas, thank God. We've been blessed with natural resources. We have to go back and, part of the legislation we're going to work this year is to rework some of the bills that I'm going to talk through here in a minute. Is we don't have the law and we don't have the agencies, as was proved by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor last year, who came out with a report within weeks after the 2014 legislation was over with, that basically said that the Louisiana departments are not doing their job. If you hadn't read that report, you need to read that report. Because their job is to protect us. And they don't have the staff and we don't have the laws. Our laws are permissive. We've got an agency, Department of Natural Resources, under Stephen Schutz, one of my homeboys. We're from the same parish. He's a Point de Pee man. Same parish as Julius Padres, right up here off the Falls River. He leads that organization. But I can tell you, he doesn't have the laws to back him up, and he don't have the legislature to back him up. And as a result, they roll on a lot of issues. What are they short on? You name it, equipment, people to go out and inspect wells. All of that was in that report. And there's a big question on whether we've got the right staff and the right ability to monitor the amount of royalties this state is supposed to get. Buy corn, one of the things, that, besides a disaster in terms of the size of it, it came to discovery they weren't even, Texas Brown wasn't even paying tax to Assumption Parish. How about that? And in order for them to find out how much tax Texas Brown, they had to hire a company out of Houston because the state didn't have a capacity to tell what was in the hole. Ladies and gentlemen, that's how I got involved, why I'm here today. And it's good to be home. To a guy from Point Capee who grew up on a subsistence farm, this is a big leap. And I, like many of you, worked my way through school and went off to the Army to serve my country. What was started off as a 4-year turned into a way of life 37 years later. And the reason we are working with this, with all these great people in here, we're volunteers to work on saving our air, saving our water, saving our land, and saving our food, our space. Because if we don't do something about pollution, it will change our culture. When we can no longer get crawfish out of the Chaffalaya Basin, it will change our culture. When we can no longer get oysters off the shelf of the Mississippi River in our wetlands, it will change our cultures. And ladies and gentlemen, that is what's happening in our state. Nobody begrudges the oil and gas business for what they do. We want them to make money. But they've got to fix what they break and they got to clean up after themselves. Now here, I said in a democracy, the people here today, the people of the press, you're the secret weapon. Without you, the democracy don't work. If you don't do your job, the democracy does not work. Show me a democracy that has a closed press and I'll show you a mess. And I've been to many of them around the world, lived in them and fought against them. Show me a democracy where the press is not free to report or the press give a whitewash on what is obviously problems that are breaking the law and not following the law, and I'll show you a mess. And we're blessed with being the 3rd largest energy producer in the United States right now. Next slide. This is a result of what we were talking about with the wetlands. If you hadn't been down to a place like Port-au-Chien or Alsace-Jean, down in the southern part of Vermilion Parish, you need to see this. Look, turtles and alligators didn't need these scars. Okay? In spite of what people tell you. Those scars, those trails in there were made by people doing exploration work. Meaning they went in to harvest the blessing that our state received in our wetlands, that oil and gas. They went in and they harvested, they put pipelines through here, and this is what it looked like. And don't let anybody fool you. This was not caused by the levees. This was caused by exploration work. The canals allow salt water to come into our coast, and if you want to go see it firsthand, go down and link up with the Port-au-Chien Indians and let them show you what has happened to the place where they live. The preacher there at that little church told me 40 years ago he used to see alligators in the front of his house at Port-au-Chien. Now they see sharks. That is because of exploration work that did not close those man-made canals. And that salt water continued to penetrate our wetlands. This has nothing to do with the Mississippi River, where they are. That is a whole lot to do with exploration work. And we had a bill on that we talked about last year. You remember 469, we had a lot of discussion on that. It was to hold them accountable, to fix what they broke. And that bill went through, you know the rest of the story on that one. But that story is not over with. That's the gift that keep on giving back. Because in the wisdom of the legislature, they passed a law that was retroactive. And when I start seeing a democracy that we're passing retroactive laws, it set us above the rest of the constitutions around the country where we are passing retroactive laws. That is a setback. That's not a welcome sign, come to Louisiana and do business. That's not a welcome sign to say, come to Louisiana and go to school. That's not a welcome sign to come to Louisiana and be an innovator. That's not a welcome sign to come to Louisiana and build a hotel. Ladies and gentlemen, people who watch this. And then there's the other thing that people talk about is how much litigation go on in Louisiana. The reason people litigate is because of this. You go to Bayou Corn, all those people had to sue. So you wonder why we have that? We had Katrina. We had Chinese drywall. We had people charging all kind of money for everything from rent. All that required people to go to sue because we have weak state laws. The last time I checked, you could drill an oil well without being bonded. Hello? So my cousin Ricard and DeQuir and Honore, they get together, get them a pickup truck, go get them a piece of old board out welcome, can go drill a well. You don't have to be bonded. So it's no wonder we got 6,000 abandoned oil wells, many of them along our coast. And as you see this is our Superfund sites. Isn't that a proud thing to have? This many Superfund sites in our state. Every one of them belong to a legislator. The day we were arguing with Representative Dove over a Clean Air Act bill, the day before that, there was a new Superfund site designated in Honore. At an industrial site where a company was cleaning equipment and created a Superfund site. Who's going to pay for that? Federal government's got to pay for it now. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our challenge. This bill continues to stay alive in the courts. And it was renamed and it became a retroactive. That was not a good day in the history of the state of Louisiana. Next slide. And all the material I'm briefing here from is from the book. If you're from the press, you should get one of these. Mary Lee has it. And we'd be glad to share those with you. By this afternoon, these will be posted on our website, gogreenarmy.com. And you can download a copy of it if you wish. Because we have the individual voting record of the legislators and senators in the back of the book. Next slide. Okay. There's a particular, you see the green team on page 7, the people we recognize who were stalwart supporters of most of the work we did. There's a SCR Bill 142 in here that could have made a difference in the state of Louisiana right now as we sit here in a problem with revenue. And that particular bill was introduced by Senator Rick Gallo that would require a legislative audit of the money that the state was receiving. That thing made it, got to the Senate, and was killed at the last minute when they figured out what we were doing. That would have probably been a good thing to have done last year, wasn't it? So we know the rest of the story on that one. Those of you that have one of the books in the back, we go across, I guess in every one of the bills that we were associated with as far as dealing with fighting pollution, we were able to record the votes of all of our legislators. Of note, to give you an example, Mary Lee, what is the score of our 2 environmental champions down there in New Orleans? We got the lead senator in here. I've admired him because he walked, but he was not present for a lot of votes because he worked for the oil and gas business. I don't think we're going to ever get this straight in Louisiana until we have a recusal law. Right now, our legislators are not required to recuse themselves if they are in the business of what they're voting on. One of the root causes, that's not our business as environmental people, but a greater cause for people in Louisiana. I don't know how we're going to get a fair shake in the legislators, the citizens of Louisiana, when the legislators are not required to recuse themselves from a law. So you got people who are lawyers, many of them are, that work for oil and gas industry. There's nothing wrong with that. That's good. They're representatives. But when they come to the legislature, they support laws that support the oil and gas business, and many times that's completely opposite of what it does when it comes to protecting our air and our water. In that, we want them to clean up after themselves. Matter of fact, they defend oil and gas in court on preventing them from having to, forcing them to clean up after them, fix what they broke. Then they work in the legislature and they get to vote, and some of them get to not only vote, but they get to shape bills. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got to fix that. Right here in Baton Rouge, water is continuing to be a problem for our capital region, the Southern Hill Aquifer. It's under attack every day. We got two particular companies in this town. They draw 66 million gallons of water a day from the Southern Hill Aquifer. Over time, we've done study after study. We came out of legislature last year, and the Department of Natural Resources Conservation, Mr. Welsh, have created another study. Guess who's leading the study? One of the very companies that's using 22 million gallons of water a day. And they're going to go around the libraries and tell you, hey, you only water your grass once a week, and take a 2-minute shower, don't take a 10-minute shower. And make sure you separate your garbage. And they use 22 million gallons of drinking water a day when they could be using river water. But again, you can't say nothing about that in this town, because as I spoke at the Rotary a few months ago about this, one of my Rotary buddies come up and said, hey, I agree with you, but don't talk about that company. They might leave. Well, they own about 5 miles of real estate just north of the Capitol. I don't think they're leaving. Because you see, their buddies, Dow use river water, Shell use river water. Why that company not using river water? Their attitude is the state of Louisiana gave them a law, a right of capture. They can use aquifer water. And the testament about it is the man who put his reputation on line, oh, Hayes Town, where are you, Hayes? He's sitting right here in the room. In his second half, he did the same thing I did. He got involved with something. And his is to clean, how we get and preserve the Southern Hill Aquifer. Now the Southern Hill Aquifer is under attack in St. Tammany Parish. So the water will be captured up there as it comes this way, and again, it's an assault on our water. Well, ladies and gentlemen, those are the big issues. We're going back to the 2015 legislature, and we're basically going back with the same focus. We're going back with a requirement to try and get a 21st century clean air bill. The 21st century clean air bill, we started last year in the legislature, got it to a resolution, came out of the House of Representatives, never got presented on the other side. We need a clean air bill with 21st century air monitoring because of what's going on in St. Rose right now. St. Rose is a little community in St. John Parish, right next to the Destrehan Plantation, where the people get sick because the air come out of 2 plants there making them sick. When we called the state LDEQ and said, hey, we need some equipment out here, the deputy secretary of the LDEQ told me our equipment's broke. I said, well, get a contractor. She said, well, General, if we send a contractor out there and they don't find nothing, we got to pay for it, and I don't have the money in the state to pay for it. We got 150 chemical plants we brag about every day. It's like inviting NASCAR races on I-10 and you don't have enough police to watch them, how fast they're going. How could we do that? So we're in the best of time and the worst of time, and the only thing I can tell you is that the people in this room, the press, you've got the power of the pen to shed light on these issues. We are not fighting these people. We want to work with them. We had a conversation with the Vice President of Exxon and said, hey, let's go to the legislature together, let's work something out where you get some kind of exemption for going from aquifer water to river water. No, we got a right to that water. We'll see you in court. That's his word. They got to platoon a lawyer to make $44 billion a year. That's when oil was $120 a barrel. Now, if they wouldn't do it when it's $120 a barrel, what are they going to say now? You're going to run us out of states. You're going to run us out of business. Think about what could have happened if they committed some of themselves to do something to clean up when we had a time. And this is what's going on in St. Rose right now. All we're talking about is a series of sensors, just like they have in Richmond, California, and a black box just like you have in an airplane. If an accident happened at that place, people get an automatic phone call. Right now, the way the state worked that, is that if the citizens call the state will call the company and say, something happened over there? Oh, we had a little something going on, we checking it out. And then the state called the first responders. That's the way it works. And oh, by the way, if you don't get the right number at LDEQ, you're going to get a recording until you call back tomorrow. That's the problem we got, ladies and gentlemen. We got weak laws and weak regulations. We've got to fix that in Louisiana. We live in the best of times and the worst of times. We're blessed with all the activity, but we've got to have something that controls and make sure people are notified. Just like you have an accident, think about if we had a black box on the BP incident that would tell what they were talking about, who was talking on the radio, what they were talking about, and what the problem was. Because as soon as the accident was over, when we lost 11 of our people there, what happened? Everybody lawyered up and said, well, I don't remember what happened. I don't know who told them to turn the valve off. I told them to turn the valve off. I don't know. We would have that recorded. So we've got to move the monitoring of these companies into the 21st century, because it not just doesn't affect the people in the fence line community, it affects our state. And we're getting plants so close together, we could have plants commit fratricide on the plant right next door and not know it. Because stuff happens. Machinery breaks, we understand that. We're not Puritans in that thought. But if we need automated monitoring and automated notification systems in the state, and we need to get there on that particular bill. So we're going to go on air. We're coming back on water. Baton Rouge overuse of the aquifer, and one of the discussions we have, and we think water needs to be moved out of DNR because oil and water don't mix. DNR hosts the oil and gas companies at the Roosevelt Hotel for a big annual conference last year, and the Office of Conservation is inside of DNR. DNR is an advocate for oil and gas, and the Office of Conservation is a protector of the water. Something doesn't work there. And then we got the Capital Region Water Commission. Last year, the chairman of the board, or president of the board, when I went to a meeting a little over a year ago, he was an industry representative. They use 44 million gallons of water a day, and he is in charge of the board. So it's like literally putting the old wolf inside the chicken coop, because they sit on the board. They not only sit on the board, they're the chairman of the board. That's as functionally dysfunctional. So we got a lot of work to do. We need to press to do your job and ensure that the law is being followed, because our government doesn't have enough people out in the field. But the best thing we got in the field is the people who live here, the people who St. Rose, who get up in the middle of the night and say, we're smelling rotten eggs, or the people in Mossville, right outside of the West Lake, where the Sassel plant going. There are no birds left in Mossville. How do you feel about that in Sport with Paradise? With 11 chemical plants there are no birds left there. How much more are we going to give up for what we're getting back is a question. And all they have to do is follow the Clean Air Act, have automated monitoring, follow the law. Hey, look, they were making $120 a barrel last year. They hadn't gone out of business at $60 a barrel. Somewhere there, there's some money sitting out there. I don't want their money, but I want them to go clean up after themselves and fix what they broke. That's all we're asking for. Right now, we got the same situation in Alexandria, Louisiana, Samtown. Miss Agnes Francois back there. One side of Samtown is a plant that make creosote posts. On the other side of Samtown is the one that make telephone poles. We need those. We need the industry. But they're right inside a community. They split the address of the two plants up so they wouldn't stay underneath the provisions of the Clean Air Act. And you know what? People are getting sick there. There's a mini-state Superfund site right on this, where that plant is. That's inside Alexandria. Right now, Camp Minden. Camp Minden was declared a Superfund site in 1983 or 5, something like that. Camp Minden today has 15 million pounds of M6 propellant on it. that the EPA itself was supervising the burn of. That is a very poisonous chemicals. And now we're fighting the EPA and the Army, who own that stuff and gave it to some fly-by-night company. And then Governor Foster allowed them to bring it here and put it on Camp Minden. And you know the rest of the story. That stuff is sitting up there. It's got the power of a mini nuclear bomb sitting at Camp Minden. Now we got to work out the disposal. If you hadn't looked up that story, I encourage you to do it because it is a major problem. And Camp Minden has never been mitigated from being a Superfund site. I've got pictures on Camp Minden of lakes, like the two lakes next to the state capitol that are polluted. Y'all know those two lakes that are still polluted? Westinghouse left them. Imagine that as an advertisement. Come to Louisiana, our state lakes next to our capitol are polluted. How proud are we of that? We got to fix that. Camp Minden, lakes that are pink. You ever seen pink water? And they're sitting on Camp Minden right now. That water has gotten into the aquifers up there. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a lot of work to do. I appreciate your patience for allowing me to come here today and share with you. We're going to move forward this year on air, water, clean air, and clean food because we don't have a choice. We got these businesses coming, that's good news. They're bringing a lot of jobs, that's good news. But we've got to have the regulatory capacity in place, and we've got to modernize our capacity. When the LDEQ went to St. Rose, they brought some things out that looked like 5-gallon paint cans. 1950s technology. And you set the can out there, and it suck up a little piece of air, then you take it, and you got to send it off someplace to get it tested. We got 1950s technology in the 21st century, trying to control the 21st century industry. So thank you for listening, and I'm prepared to take your questions at this time.